Hello, hello, hello. It's Tuesday. You know what that means. It's time for another edition of the Big D podcast. Before I bring in Alex for his weekly episode, please subscribe, like, and share the Spunky Sweatin' Sports YouTube page where you can look up all the greatest content. By the way, it is December 7th, so as we remember this day where 2,300 plus of our brave soldiers gave the ultimate sacrifice, thank you to all past, present, and future veterans of this country. And also check out the Big D podcast on Spotify and Apple. So joining us is a very happy, exhausted, and I don't know if I could say rich or maybe somewhat richer Alex today.
What's up, Dylan? It is a great Tuesday. We typically record these on Mondays, like we know, but I had some fantasy football action last night that I wanted to get covered on here today. So you are very right. I am a very happy man. First of all, fins up, baby, 5 in a row. Nice little dub over the Giants. But more importantly, I don't know about more importantly, but also equally as important, my Guillotine Eliminator Fantasy Football League has a new champion, and that is me.
Yeah, be honest. I think we were more concerned with the kickers in that game than Mac Jones, Josh Allen, Cole Beasley, David Harris, Stephon Diggs, anybody catching and running the ball. We were concerned about the kickers.
Absolutely. Going into the Monday night game down 4.1 points. I needed 5 points from Nick Folk, and I get news alerts all day saying gusts of wind up to 55 miles per hour for the Monday night football game. And I am sitting there like looking at Nick Folk's season stats, like, has he scored less than 5 points in a game all year? He did it once. I'm like, this better not be another time. Then what do you know? The Patriots score a touchdown. I'm like, great. They go for two. I'm like, not great. I mean, it was a roller coaster of emotion, but at the end of the day, Nick Folk came through for me. 2 field goals, gave me 6 points, or 7 points actually, because one was a 40-plus yarder. And I take home a nice little $350 pot, Guillotine champion. So it was a great day.
Yeah, could you explain how your guillotine league worked?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's 14 team league. We had PPR settings. Let me make sure I've got the roster settings correct. So, one quarterback, two receivers, two running backs, tight end, a flex, kicker, defense. And at the beginning of the year, we obviously had our draft, just a regular snake draft. But the big catch to the league is whoever finishes in last place each individual week. There's no head-to-head matchups. It's all based on points. It's all based on points you get. Whoever finishes last in points for that week gets eliminated, and each so when a team gets eliminated, all of their players get released on Tuesday and they get sent to waivers. Each team has a $150 waiver budget for the entire season, and you can bid on the players who have been released by the team that lost that week. So, at the beginning of the season, people were throwing $100 at Najee Harris and Alvin Kamara, and just a bunch of star players, because you're trying to get the star power to get your team in the best situation, just to not get last. You could get second to last every single week in this season, get to the last week and win it all, which I did not do. I got first place actually multiple times throughout the season. But it was just, I've never done a league like that before. I definitely learned some things that if I did it again next year, I would actually do a couple things differently. One of my draft strategies actually was to I was picking players with late buys, and that worked out really well. I mean, obviously, I would go for best player available if I could, or best player for my team if I could. But if it was between a couple players, and for instance, like I picked AJ Brown, which he didn't have the best year, obviously, but I ended up replacing him throughout midway through the year anyway. But I picked him, and I had Tannehill, who both had Week 13 buys. I had Derrick Henry. I had three Titans, which in a regular league would make me nervous. But I'm thinking if these guys have a great year, I get to wait until week 13 before that would even affect me. And through all of these teams being eliminated throughout the year anyway, I mean, none of those players were even on my roster by the end of the year. So it's just it was a really cool strategy for a league, or a type of league. I definitely want to do it again. Hopefully the league re-ups and I can defend my throne.
Yeah. So, how did you spend your $150 in this guillotine league? Because you and I went back and forth over which players you should go after.
Yeah, I will say that's one thing that I would definitely do differently next year. I spent I was short on a running back. I can't remember who my running. Oh, I had Chris Carson as I was playing Chris Carson in my flex, and I wanted to get a better running back. And Alvin Kamara became available around week 3 or 4 or 5, somewhere relatively early. And I'd never done a league with waiver money. I'd never done a league with bidding on players. I'd never done an auction draft or anything like that. So I wasn't too sure about how exactly to go about spending my money. But in the first 2 weeks, Najee Harris and another really talented running back both went for like $100 free agent money. So I'm thinking, all right, these guys. Aaron Jones was the other one, and I'm like, all right, these guys are going to be spending some money. Like I want to get in on this so I don't get left behind and end up losing a week. So I ended up spending probably too much money. I think definitely too much money, but it actually paid off for a couple weeks. I spent $101, I think, of the 150 in week 4 or 5 on Alvin Kamara, which I mean, he helped. I'd have to look back at it to see if how things would have went if I didn't have him. He might have saved me in a couple weeks. So I guess it wasn't a mistake. Obviously, I won, so it couldn't have been too much of a mistake. And later in the year, I had some quarterback problems, so I spent some money on. I spent the rest of the money. I only bought 2 players with my money. I spent the rest of it on Justin Herbert, who definitely had a couple of good weeks for me. But like I said, I mean, a couple things differently. I would definitely, next time I do it, make sure I kept some money at the end, because there was one when there was about 4 teams left, only one team had money left. So when those players hit the waiver wire, he would bid $1 on every single player he wanted, and he would get everyone because obviously no one else had any money to outbid him. So I would definitely keep at least 10, 20, $30. It might bite you, because if you try and save that money and you lose, you can't go home with it, or you're going home with it. But it definitely would have been nice to have those extra funds to really get the guys I wanted at the end of the year. It ended up working out, but definitely a couple things I would do differently.
Were there any weeks that you were you nervous thinking, "Oh crap, am I getting eliminated this week?"
Yeah, it's I can't really look it up because all of the teams have been eliminated, so I can't really see the previous week results or anything. But I know I was near the bottom. I was never really too close to being eliminated. I think it came down to a Monday night once, but I had two players going, I think, and I only needed them to get a certain number of points, which I think I needed like 11 points from 2 good players. So I that was probably the closest it came down to, but I really was never too, like, it never came down to like a decimal or one pass play or something like that.
Yeah. So speaking of rosters, your Week 13 roster sounds like an all-star game, if you ask me.
Yeah, I got pretty lucky. Um, you know, in the second to last week, the team the for somehow, some way, there was a stacked team. The team who still had money left, the team I was talking about earlier, had a completely stacked roster, and somehow
Wait, and
uh,
who's on this roster?
he had Cooper Cup and Jonathan Taylor. I think he might have even had Kelsey. He just had some great players, and somehow like I said, I can't look back at it, but somehow he ended up getting third. It was when there was 3 teams left to get to the championship. He ended up getting third out of the 3, and he got eliminated. And I don't think I would have won if the other team got eliminated because he had such good players, and the good players he had a really good week this week. So I think him ending up losing won it for me, but because he lost, my final week 13 championship team ended up being Tom Brady with a nice 30 points, Tyreek Hill, who could have cost me the week with 3.2, Cooper Kupp 22.9, Jonathan Taylor 24.3, Leonard Fournette 18.7. Mark Andrews didn't have a great week at tight end with 7, and I had Alexander Madison, who was a late decision swap for me. I made 2 decisions this week. I had Lamar Jackson in at quarterback, and I ended up changing for Brady, and I had Stephon Diggs in my flex and ended up changing to Alexander Madison. And if I
because
did
of
not make both of
because of
those moves, what's up?
because of the 90-mile-an-hour
Yeah.
winds in Buffalo
Which
last
I
night.
had to make that. I couldn't wait until Monday to make that decision. I had to make that decision on Sunday before the Vikings played. But if I didn't make both of those moves, if I only made one of those moves, or if I made both of those moves, I would have lost if I didn't start Madison and Brady. So I was happy with those late decision roster changes. It ended up winning me the league, and I won by 3 points.
Cha-ching!
Yep.
So now we switch from your Guillotine League back to football, and you know who else finally won a game for the second straight year? The Detroit Lions are unbeaten in Week 13, but this time they were in the win column,
Yep. I
beating
mean,
beating the Minnesota Vikings 29-27 on a walk-off touchdown.
it seems so fitting for these Detroit Lions because they've had so many heartbreakers this season. They've had so many games where it came down to a 65, 66-yard field goal, or like just, another long field goal at the death. I mean, the Lions, I've picked the Lions in multiple weeks of Pick'em this year just because, they've been playing decent football. I mean, I think they might be one of the best I think they might have been one of the best winless teams this late in the season that I've seen. I mean, they've been competitive in a lot of games this season. It's just they couldn't get across the finish line. And finally, Jared Goff to Amon Ross St. Brown, is that his name? I can't even remember. But you know, walk off touchdown, like you said, 3 zeros on the clock, and they ended up getting their dub. And I was very happy for the Detroit Lions.
By the way, I must say this: looking at that final play in Detroit, what was Mike Zimmer doing playing a super zone defense?
I don't know, man. I mean, it seemed like he just wanted to throw all his bodies in the end zone and just say, "Hey, cover a spot in the end zone and don't let someone beat you, or find the closest guy." I don't know. I don't know what he told them in that huddle before that play, but I mean, it did not work out for the Minnesota Vikings. It was a great route. I was watching his post game press conference, St. Brown, and he was like, I ran the route, I looked around, I saw I was wide open, I turned, and the ball was coming at me, and he was shocked. He was just as shocked he was wide open too. But I mean, it was good. It was good execution by Detroit. It was a good throw by Goff. It was a good catch by St. Brown, and it was enough to get him the dub.
Yeah, so now there are no more winless teams, and maybe the Detroit Lions could go on a winning streak and give the Jags the #1 pick because I think we need it.
Yeah, I mean, the Jags definitely could use some help. The first round pick, or the number 1 overall pick, would definitely be a welcome sight, I think,
I'm
for the
thinking,
Jaguars at this point.
I mean, be honest, I'm not sure you watch Championship Weekend, but there's a guy in Michigan looking half decent, but that's a story for another day.
Yeah, I mean, it's as far as the bottom of the table rankings look. I mean, that tie will make things interesting. I mean, if Detroit can go on a win streak, I mean, who knows? I mean, Jacksonville, we know obviously isn't playing very good football at all. I mean, Detroit seems like they're playing at least decent football. They couldn't get the win. They finally got that win. I don't know if that's going to give them. I don't know if they're a good enough team for that to carry them into a couple more wins. I mean, They've got the Broncos next week. They've got the Cardinals after that. The Falcons, they could win that game. The Seahawks, we'll talk about them a little bit later, but and then the Packers. I mean, it doesn't really look too promising for the Lions on the backstretch, but you never know. They could pull something out. But speaking of uh I don't know. Speaking of something, so I'll tie it back to no. There was another good football game, another good division. There was a lot of division football games this week, and I love those rivalry games. It's a different atmosphere, and how about one that came down to a very interesting call by a head coach in a decision? The Baltimore Ravens go for two at the death. It doesn't quite pay off for him. Pittsburgh Steelers 20-19 over the Baltimore Ravens. What'd you take from that game, Dylan?
Another Raven Steelers game decided by 1 point. It's seemingly every Baltimore Pittsburgh game's decided by 1 or 2 points. Doesn't matter who's playing, how many injuries. Those games are always 1 or 2 points.
Yeah,
I mean, Harbaugh and Tomlin just play 1 or 2 point games. Any Raven Steelers game's going to be physical. There might be a few choice words. There might be bloodshed, and it'll
yeah,
be decided in the fourth quarter.
absolutely.
And be honest, after a while, I was wondering, like, what the heck is going on with this game? And then all of a sudden, Big Ben Roethlisberger turned back the clock about 15 years and then played really well second half. Found Deontay Johnson seemingly. Yeah, draft Deontay Johnson in fantasy football. 8 catches, 105 yards, two more touchdowns on 11 targets.
Absolutely.
Maybe.
I dropped him in my Guillotine League for the week of the championship just because I thought I had better options than him. But we don't have to talk about that. It all worked out in the end. No, I mean Deontay Johnson's an incredible talent. I mean he's been a PPR monster for fantasy football and for the Pittsburgh State Steelers this year. A little bit of a quiet game from Najee Harris. I think obviously he's been doing so much talented work throughout the year. They can't all be triple digit yardage to score football games. I mean, he still carried 21 for 71 yards. I mean, like I said, not the greatest game, but he did enough to at least help the team. But yeah, I think Deontay Johnson was absolutely the star of the show. He and Big Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, how we got to talk about him. I mean, he's announced he's officially. We talked about this last week about if Big Ben's got it, if he's got any more seasons left in him. He's officially announced that this is his last year with the Steelers. I think was the exact quote. So I don't know if that means he wants to move on to another franchise. I would not have ever imagined Big Ben playing for another team other than the
I
Steelers. I
don't
think
think
that's probably leaning a little bit more towards retirement. But
I don't think Big Ben's playing for another team.
no, I don't think so either. I just thought it was an interesting, at least the news article I read, that was the wording, and I thought it was an interesting choice of words. But I definitely do think that this is the end of Big Ben. I mean, it seems like it, obviously, based on the recent reports. So he stepped it up. I mean, he came to play. He like you said, he stepped it up in the second half especially, and he got his team a big win over division rivals. I mean, obviously, we know it's at the end of his career. He's not going to be the same Ben as he has been throughout. Winning Super Bowl and just being one of the top quarterbacks in the league for a long time. I mean, it's hard. It's a hard thing to do in the NFL. I mean, we know the NFL stands for not for long, and he's been doing it for a long time. So it was good to see him kind of, embrace it, be able to step up and lead his team to a victory.
Yeah, so here's the interesting question. Should the Ravens have gone for two after Lamar found Sammy Watkins for that touchdown late in the fourth quarter?
I mean, obviously, it's easy to say no because they lost, but I don't hate the call. I mean, I talked to you. I wasn't able to watch that game. I was pretty busy on Sunday, so I got a little bit of a recap from you. I mean, it sounds like you said Baltimore lost all of their cornerbacks. It
Yeah,
sounds like to me.
Baltimore secondary was hurting.
Yeah. So I mean, in that situation, when you've got Deontay Johnson going off as big as he was, and Big Ben really getting in his groove in the second half. I don't dislike the call to go for 2 point. And the biggest thing about the 2 point conversion in this NFL is teams are getting so creative. I mean, I didn't see the 2 point conversion play, so what did they run?
It looked like Baltimore. It looked like Baltimore tried to get Mark Andrews involved, which makes sense because Mark Andrews is Lamar's number one target. I mean,
Yeah, he's a big
it's
target, a good red zone target.
and plus,
See,
as we saw last week against Cleveland, he catches everything in sight.
yeah, honestly, I don't know. It's just for me, like the NFL offenses have gotten so creative and so unique and so, I mean, just new and fresh and exciting. I really don't mind 2 point conversion plays because these teams can draw up some. I mean, we see the Philly special come out every once in a while. Miami's been running the Wildcat. You see some double option flips. I mean, teams have gotten so creative and have worked so many like just a way to get 2 yards. I mean, you need one play that can get you 2 yards, and teams have really found. I mean, if you pull out something a team's never seen before, there's a good chance it's going to come off successfully. So I really don't mind the call. I mean, if it was just kind of a simple route tree pass play to Mark Andrews, that kind of surprises me a little bit. I mean, Jim Harbaugh's been coaching football for a long time. I'm a little surprised he didn't come up with something a little bit more creative and unique than that. But I mean, like I said, I don't disagree with the call. It's completely situational football, and that's what Harbaugh thought he needed to do to win the game, and it unfortunately for him didn't pay off for him.
1,000% Baltimore should have gone for it. You've got Lamar Jackson.
Yeah,
The defense is tired. You've got Lamar. I don't care if you're facing 72 Steel Curtain.
yeah,
Let's go. Or the 72 Dolphins.
yeah. There you go. Yeah, it definitely sounds like we're in agreement there. I mean, it's easy to say you shouldn't when they don't get it, but I mean, we both were saying they should. I think if Harbaugh was in the same situation again, I think he'd make the same decision. And it didn't work this time, but there might be another opportunity, and hopefully, for their sake, it pays off for them next time. But you want to move on? All right, let's do. We're at a very interesting point in the season. A lot of teams have been either stepping it up or slacking off a little bit. I want to hear some NFL power rankings. How do you think the top of the table is laying out, Dylan?
Alright, here are my top 5 teams.
All right.
Number 5, the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
I know everybody will say Kansas City's offense has been dormant lately. Sunday night was not great. I'm sorry if you use Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, or Travis Kelce in your fantasy football. But to me, the story is not Kansas City's offense. It's Kansas City's defense.
Yeah.
I mean, have you seen the Chiefs' defense? They've gone nuclear the last few weeks. Like, you're not scoring on them.
Yeah.
I mean, true, Teddy Bridgewater's not exactly Patty Mahomes. But the Chiefs are on 5. We know what Andy Reid's capable of doing of buys. They never lose of buys. I mean, the Chiefs have won 1, 2, 3, 5 straight games, and in those games, Kansas City has not allowed more than 17 points.
Yeah. I mean, that's obviously Kansas City. I mean, we know Kansas City has the star power on offense. It's always been the question on how their defense can respond when they start playing these really good teams late in the year. I mean, obviously the Super Bowl came down to their offensive line, but their
A
defense didn't
lack
help.
of offensive line.
Exactly. But I mean, their defense obviously didn't do the best job at stopping Tom Brady anyway. So it really just, I mean, I agree with you. The defense is stepping up, and I like them in that spot at 5 for you.
Number 4, and despite this team winning on Monday night, I'm still wondering whether the New England Patriots are really a Super Bowl challenger. Yes, New England's looking like the best team in the AFC right now. But How many passes did Mac Jones throw? Not true. They were playing in basically a nor'easter or hurricane, whatever you call it. Maybe a bomb cyclone or whatever that term was in Santa Clara.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this team a little bit last year. Last week. I mean, obviously the Patriots have been on a streak, but it I'm not fully sold on the Patriots yet. I mean, they're the hottest team in the NFL. They're playing good football. Obviously, yesterday was extreme circumstances. It'd be tough to do anything yesterday. Fortunately, they hit 2 field goals, um, I yesterday was almost a wash just because of the extreme weather conditions. But like you said. I mean, I'm not completely sold on the New England Patriots. I think they've had a good stretch of form, but when those playoff games start coming and it starts getting down to crunch time for a rookie quarterback, I'm not quite sure that he's got the just the experience, not even the experience, but just the ability to lead his team to a Super Bowl, as a rookie. I think that still might be a little far fetched for them.
True. I mean, we've seen young quarterbacks win Super Bowls in second year. Russell Wilson, Ben Roethlisberger, Eli Manning was young when the Giants won the Super Bowl. Can a rookie quarterback win? We'll find out.
Yeah,
Number three. Speaking of winning Super Bowls, Tom Brady's done a pretty good job of winning Super Bowls. Let's see, how many have they won? Has he won? I lost count.
6, maybe 7 this year. I mean, he's Tom Brady. We all know he's the GOAT.
I mean, the Bucks offense, especially at home or in a dome, looks unstoppable right now. I
Hmm.
mean, Brady's in sync. Godwin, Evans. By the way, Rob Gronkowski's looking the best he's done this late in the season after he missed a couple weeks, but Gronk's looking really strong now.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not. That's the thing about Gronk is that when they were in New England, I mean, they really didn't have the guy or even a guy that was to the standard that Gronk was. So I mean, he was getting so much work in that New England offense because he was by far the best pass catcher on that Patriots team. Now all of a sudden you put him in an environment with Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. I mean, it's a really good running game in Leonard Fournette. I mean, the pressure has been just it's I mean, it just makes logical sense. Obviously, he's been hurt. He's missed a couple of weeks, and that honestly will probably be good for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because they're still in a good spot getting to the playoffs, and now they can have a more fresh Gronk going into the home stretch of the regular season and into the playoffs. I mean, I almost think that those couple of weeks off that Gronk had was a nice little a nice break, a nice refresher, and he should be good to go for the rest of the season. I mean, just being in an offense with that many options, it really takes the stress off of him. And I think this is a perfect situation for Gronk and the Bucks.
Yep. So I want to hear your one and two rankings before I give you mine.
All right, I like that idea because so far our top five power rankings have been back to back spot on. So I'm curious to see if our top two are the same or if we flip these two. So obviously, I think we both have the same two teams as 1 and 2. It just depends on if we've got them in the same order or not. For me, I'm going to have. I've been waffling a little bit, but I think I'm going to go with my number 2 team as the Green Bay Packers. You know, and I see we disagree. It was very close for me. I mean, obviously, yes, they just had a great win over the LA Rams. I mean, that was a big game for them, but they lost to the Minnesota Vikings the week before, a team who just lost to the Detroit Lions. I mean, obviously, the Green Bay Packers have a very talented football team. They've had some injuries with Aaron Jones, even though AJ Dillon did a great job of stepping it up. But I mean, they also gave up obviously, yes, it's the Rams who've got a pretty good offense, but they gave up 28 points this week. They gave up 31 points the week, or 34 points to the Vikings. Yeah, they shut out the Seahawks, but the Seahawks were not. The Seahawks have been terrible all season. I'm not 100% sold. I still think the Green Bay Packers are the second best team in the NFL. It's just I'm not 100% sold, and really the main reason why I have them as number 2 is because those Arizona Cardinals sitting at 10-2, they have been plagued by injuries all year. And the fact that they have been able to stick to a 10-2 record, and now they're finally getting Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins back healthy. I mean, they only played the Bears this week. It was a 33-22 win, a little bit closer of a score than you might expect, but it's also Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins' first game back. I mean, for a very similar reason that I see, that we were talking about Gronk with the Bucks and how he had like a mid-season break almost, if you will, and now is heading into the end of the season and into the playoffs with a little bit of a resting period. I give that same point to DeAndre Hopkins and Kyler Murray. Obviously, Kyler Murray's a younger player. He probably doesn't need that break, but it's also a 17-game season this year, which is something that no NFL players have been have had the chance to get used to. So who knows? I mean, that extra regular season could play in a little bit more than people think on your energy and your ability to really play to your 100% performance on Sundays or in the playoffs. I mean, so I just have Arizona as number 1 just because they've got that 10 they're sitting at 10-2. They've been playing good football and they're getting healthier. I mean, obviously that defense has been solid all year, and I mean, it's close. It's more of a 1A 1B thing for me, but I give the slight edge to Arizona. And I know you disagree with me. I've seen it on your face since the second I said Green Bay. So hit me with it.
Wait a minute. Who won when Green Bay and Arizona played on Thursday Night Football?
The Green Bay Packers did.
Who's winning games without a Pro Bowl level left tackle, a Pro Bowl level running back, the NFL's best wide receiver, maybe the NFL's best quarterback, and a key pass rusher?
But yeah, Dylan, the Arizona Cardinals beat the Seahawks with Colt McCoy playing quarterback last week.
Whatever.
AJ Green, well, Rondale Moore was their leading receiver by
Yeah,
receptions,
the
not by
Bears.
yards.
Yeah, the Bears are who we thought they were. That's why we took the dang field.
Well, that was the Seahawks game. I'm not even
Whatever.
talking about the
Okay,
Bears game.
Seahawks, Bears. Listen, Green Bay has played a brutal schedule.
Yeah, it's true.
They put Green Bay is the best team in football, and I don't even think it's close right now. Aaron Rodgers isn't even the key cog to that offense. AJ Dillon.
Yeah,
You kidding? How good's AJ Dillon second half of these games? You
yeah.
can't stop me. He's like Derrick Henry. We know how good
Oh,
Adams is as a route runner.
you kind of lost me with. I mean, you can't compare. AJ Dillon's been playing great football. I'm sorry,
And
but
yes,
comparing him to Derrick Henry, I think is a bit of a stretch, Dylan. But
hey, he's healthier than Derrick Henry is.
yeah, health, yeah. But I mean, when Derrick Henry is as healthy as AJ Dillon, you're telling me you're even considering about who you're picking between those two guys?
If one guy's 9 grand, the other's 4,500 on DK, we need the value.
That's a good point, but. I mean, I'm just saying, pure
I'm
football, give
kidding.
me Derrick Henry every day of the week, and I'm not thinking twice about it. I'm not thinking about another running back. Healthy, give me Derrick Henry.
I'm kidding.
I know. Sorry, there's no one you can compare to Derrick Henry. I guess I can see similarities in that game, and AJ Dillon, nothing to take away from AJ Dillon. He's playing great football. He's stepped up in an immense fashion for the Green Bay Packers with Aaron Jones dealing with the injuries. But Derrick Henry is one of the most incredible football players I've ever seen. But I'm sorry, I cut you off.
All right, all right, all right. Thanks for hopping on, Alex. Congrats on winning the Guillotine League. And we wish you Dolphins well. Hey, you'll be on vacation next week with the Dolphins on bye, so you'll actually be able to watch the games and and figure out figure out if the Dolphins could continue on this winning streak.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's been. I wish we would have had the beginning of our season as good as the second half of the stretch of the season's been going. But we're still in it. I mean, I remember having a rant very early in the year about how this has been the worst season in Dolphins history. I mean, it's so Dolphins for them to turn around and have a 5-game win streak. But go into a bye, get some rest. I don't know if it's the best time for a bye, but we've got the New York Jets coming after that. I might actually be going to that game. So it should be exciting to see how they respond after that week off. But thank you again for having me, Dylan. It's been a pleasure as always. Fins up, and I will see you next week.